Welcome everyone to the X mess here, dedicated even on this holidays. I didn't really get, oops, also wrong, thankfully that didn't open on the wrong screen. I continued with that last night and didn't really get nowhere. Also the new Rust update might be failing, because of course it does. We could actually, just tiny little bit update of course Rust and cargo, right? Diff Rust disk and 56 patch, revert that, and then build ARM and x86 for testing, because obviously can never test enough. And so the way I thought this yesterday is a 45-50 minute video of that default multi-lib stuff for Rust and for GCC, for Spark and PowerPC where we default to 32-bit. That didn't go so well. For those who are new, basically if we default to 32-bit, then the compiler default is messed up. So I tried this, so basically we can, with all the time spent on this already, probably 8 if not 10 hours on all this stuff by now, what should be trivial but isn't, previous video. And I'm not thinking, let's so the issue is also, so I thought, okay, we patch this multi-lib library stuff to remain sane. Then we built it like eval make opt maybe all GCC, and then because we configure the multi-lib in a way that the make file are not expected to work. Yesterday's video, right? And I thought, okay, fine. We use our wrapper, that's what we have it for, to insert, to default to M64. Basically, even there, I tried probably an hour around. And welcome everyone, and Merry Xmas. Happy to see you, by the way. How are you doing? And so the problem is, you would think that could work, and also, I also saw this using our wrapper to default to 64-bit to make this multi-lib stuff work. Somehow it still doesn't work, right? Build. After like 1 hour of trial and error and adjusting that for include order and of make files and options of C-flag orders, it starts to do the right thing, but somehow it still doesn't build. And now with basically relocations, I'm not even entirely sure what's going on there. But obviously we are working a little bit against the intention of the GCC make files. Also, did I, all right, I just webbed this accidentally, or did I not accidentally? Anyway, somehow it's still, whatever it's messing up, maybe linking in 32-bit, 64-bit. There were some relocation errors, which probably I know because I accidentally rebuilt this. Anyway, long story short, maybe it is better to differently sledgehammer that of like what I tried. Actually, I tried to patch and configure it the right way, which turned out to be, the make files, not amazing. 20-plus-year-old, 25-year-old relicts of historic scripting with shells without function. And I'm thinking, okay, let's maybe instead change that to build normally, so totally normally, because the only change we want is defaulting the compiler to 32-bit, and we could simply do this in T2. So we could actually build GCC normally, like ppc64, and call it a day. The problem with that is, and in T2 change the C flags to M32. I tried that some years ago, and the result, unfortunately, is that you get, if you manually build stuff, you get different binaries and results, obviously, with defaulting to 64-bit. And the even bigger issue is that if you then configure T2 manually, that you get 64-bit stuff built, which all is, of course, not matching your host system's 32-bit stuff. This is why we even changed the default, so that it just works the same if you run. Otherwise, each time you would manually configure, make install, or run your own, like you have your own stuff to work on, your own C++ project, and you would configure, make install them or CMake or whatever, you would constantly get different binaries than your system defaulters, which obviously is super annoying. And I know it is super annoying because I did this with sparc64 15 years ago and with ppc64 some years ago. The patching is, by the way, slightly different because sparc64 doesn't have a nice compiler switch for that. Anyway, so long story short, let's build GCC normally, completely normal, without this default change, which I just said is annoying. But after it built all its multi-lib stuff, which is quite excessive now with libatomics and libgcc and C++ SDL and all the other libquadmeth and all the other fun stuff, then at the end rebuilds it so that we basically don't use that here, and only at the end, after everything is built only GCC, so not all the other stuff, only GCC a second time. So that would be like false, and that, I think that probably disabled that. So building everything totally normal, and then we have here a 25 years, no shell functions, cheers. At least we can use functions unlike the GCC makefiles. Function GCC default 32 or something. And also, what did I press here? Some nice little breaking space. And then basically, so that needs some conditionalizing for Spark and stuff. Because it, unfortunately, yeah, GCC, this default 32 only works for PowerPC, or maybe some other, mainly for PowerPC, probably not for, maybe for something, but not for Spark. I looked some year ago, recently I checked, it wasn't there. So, then if that or that, then run this after everything. So probably what does postmake do? Probably just some GCC postmake is, oops, GCC postmake, come on, postmake, toolchain, some links, okay, that is, yeah, postmake. So add some hook hook add GCC default 32 at post make like 5. And my idea now is to so add that conf option and what's going on? So many people today. So what a day to make PowerPC and Spark fixes. Coffee. So my idea is to rebuild all this stuff now. Not all the stuff, but like mkdir, maybe .object dir2. We could do it wherever, or is it, or we just either we name it like 2, or actually we could also name it GCC2, I guess, and change into that. Change dir GCC2. Doesn't really matter too much, and then config. The problem is, as per usual, I didn't pre-test that, so it could easily also just fail. Here, config script. So I guess we could actually copy all of. Actually, this is funny. We could actually theoretically use that, to be honest. It's actually not too bad of an idea. What do we have here? It's mkdir, it's basically exactly that. Um, why not reuse this code, huh? Code is there to be reused. GCC, by the way. The only thing is, do we need a... The only question is how much host library. So that is the only, or actually we could, I know why. So the problem is we need to reconfigure GCC for whatever, otherwise we would need to manually replicate whatever CPU default they do there. I don't want, we could like just patch that, but I'm not in for like another 10 hours of investigations of whatever could randomly go wrong. So the only, I mean, or could we reconfigure in the current directory and hope? I mean, we could basically try, I mean, if we would have had too much time and dedication and stuff, we could try all three of building just that, configuring GCC, but somehow I have the feeling there could be stuff going wrong. Patching, just retroactively patching GCC, which I mean, theoretically you would think it's, yeah, 10 hours ago I would have thought this multi-lib stuff is just a tiny configuration quirk. So much to just thinking. So, okay, to not cause the next build failures, I think we do not reuse that there yet and do it the hopefully safest, oh come on, safest way, which is adding config script, and reconfigure all the stuff. We also need to patch this here, so that would be like, actually we would need like cd dot patch p1 because we already fully patched and stuff, so we would need to manually do that. Cd dot patch p1, I guess, and then mkdirg, actually, yeah, this does totally not matter otherwise. Yeah, just wondering if it should just use object-dir2, but anyway, maybe it's better, it's maybe more obvious to use GCC2 here or something like that, to have it in one object-dir, otherwise people might overlook this. At least like this, it's more obvious that there's another GCC copy configured lying around. So config script, default, again here we need some, also somehow I have messed this up, probably non-breaking Unicode stuff here. And GCC, so what else would we need? So, all right, we want not to build everything. So actually we need to modify that here a little bit to, and by the way, very theoretically, to reuse stuff, I wonder if we wanted to optimize this. I mean, two things. Maybe we should try reconfiguring in the same directory and hoping that maybe, but probably not, again, each time we hope and maybe, then usually it doesn't reuse, because GCC is building like 3 or 4 host libraries of Liberty and whatever. But yeah, let's first get it to work, because I'm a little bit tired of burning my time with this vintage abandonware architecture perfections. Eval config conf opt. So what did I? So maybe what is the target? Is it? So this is, I think maybe I think I had maybe all GCC, and what is the other? Or what is? Don't tell me Rusty still. How's Rusty still failing? Why is this? It could be that I ruined my host Rust, did I? Or does it, or did it should all right, wait, this is a, this is how, I didn't rebuild one Rust C, of course, the bootstrap Rust is already broken, obviously. Because it was building yesterday with things that should build. Do we have still some? No, we don't. Oh, we have GCC though. GCC make file. The question is, do they have here all GCC? It would be in the top level make file. So they strangely generated. So they have this here. So maybe all GCC, I think, and then do they have installed GCC or? Yeah, so because we don't want to install everything else, I would hope that famous last words install, was it all GCC? Maybe install, maybe I didn't copy that. So what if GCC maybe? I only hope it does install. Yeah, it looks like it only has an install dependencies. This is always the other random tracing. You think it only installs GCC and it installs also a plethora of other stuff. Oops. So that would be my new sledgehammer solution of, yeah, sometimes, and this is unfortunate, right? Or not sometimes, often, unfortunately. Basically, maybe we do some X tracing here. Often, and this is also why you see so much YOLO stuff in tech, or maybe not even in tech, also like in car repairs and stuff. Obviously, often YOLOing is like magnitudes faster than doing the real thing. But I spent already 10 hours on researching this stuff, and although maybe 4 hours on researching this stuff and 4 hours on trying to patch and configure the right thing, which ironically the GCC people didn't want like that. I think there was somewhere yesterday, I found somewhere GCC Bugzilla ppc install parse or something. I've obviously, as usual, you have some issue, and of course others people had this issue before, and there were like a handful of GCC Bugzilla reports over the last decades, obviously, and ironically, as I would call, as per yesterday, I would call this layout, this directory layout change of GCC with simply the default, the GCC default change to 32-bit. I would call that a bug, certainly an implementation marginality. And in any case, even if not a bug, although I would call this a bug. If you have a ppc64 Linux GNU directory, it should be 64-bit stuff inside. I don't really see, I mean, it's just because the make files, and it's, in my opinion, an historic relic and artifact that it just happened, the make files and gen multilib scripts were structured in that way, and nobody ever bothered enough for ppc64 and Spark, where those architectures were made somewhat sense to optimize like that, to actually fix and patch that. And yeah, so nobody, in my opinion, nobody ever bothered enough. Probably some people noticed over the years. Even the Clang, I mean, even the Clang people noticed that through the PowerPC, some past stuff strange. Yeah. So people notice, but nobody ever bothered enough. Also, even if you bother enough, the problem, we at T2, our tiny little Linux distribution, we can just change stuff, right? The problem is, of course, always backward compatibility. And then like SUSE and Red is like, yeah, we don't touch that in, because it always has been like that. We don't touch this, but yeah. That is the benefit of T2. It's like, yeah, we just freaking do what we want here, and yeah, your source Linux distribution money can't buy, unlike other Linux distributions. So Rust compiling there. Let's hope that Bootstrap goes fine there. And so again, if you tuned in now, we are now waiting for this test to. Also, we probably could Control, stop those. And have to give higher build priority to GCC. By the way, what did we edit? Yeah, the other day we added, right, this was mold. I wanted to look into, for the next year, so the next year will, by the way, the year of more, I said this 100 times this year, yes, I know, but next year already, although it's not yet New Year, but already New Year resolution, next year more mainstream pre-edited video, not daily, but maybe at least like one proper video review stuff each week. And the year of low level and microkernel, because I'm not only T2 is in amazing shape now, sure, you could always improve KDE in GNOME, but for me this is not primary mission critical. For me, mission critical is like kernel, C library and stuff, and Spark and PowerPC obviously. And T2 is in except KDE and GNOME, but who cares, all right? In such an amazing shape, I would say and hope that between Dater's nightly auto updates and our and increasing community contributions, we hopefully keep it in that way so that it's in a lower maintenance time mode after burning all or most of 2021 on perfecting my funny little Linux distribution. And so that, yeah, 2022 hopefully the year of mono level and microkernel. Of course, microkernel will take a year. I have no illusions there. This might then be like one step a week or so, like 1 week exploring low-level booting on Spark or PowerPC or x86, and another week like it will be randomly brainstorming stuff, right? Because it's a fun project, and I obviously don't work on fun projects of like this week I need to do networking stack, whatever. So it might be 1 week early boot stuff on Spark or so, or testing bare metal booting on RISC-V or something, or on FPGA, also some stuff. Or change the command not found. Oh, so what did I recently? Oh, come on. Why did nobody scream on me, man, for that faux pas here? And this were text 4, and so it might be like another week non-structured of not like next best step, but just because I want to have some fun, like low-level 3D stuff on even running on DOS, not the microkernel or something with virtual voodoo, and because it's what we're here for, right? So have some fun and learn something, and it's not a 24/7 job of writing microkernel in a structured way. So GCC and GCC object dear GCC2, and let's maybe copy it. I copied all of that. All right, I also copied. Okay, fine. Let's. Oh, why does this copy like that? Oh, that is funny. Now let's see what happens. So again, we reconfigure everything. So this is a little bit wasting time at build, but we only have this special rebuilding setup. If it even hopefully works, it also needs to survive a whole bootstrap, right? Even if that now builds and configures, it still also needs to, for example, Liberty is there. It needs to survive the whole T2 bootstrap, right? Which might be, we go out of this live stream in 10 minutes, it's like, hey, it builds, but then I will notice later, it breaks other random stuff due to the sledgehammer and random way we rebuild that here. Did I, by the way, hopefully, so are we already maybe done? Are we maybe we're linking, or probably, I'm not sure what we are doing here. Maybe make was probably LTO here on something. What did I want to say? Whatever I did, I need coffee. Yeah, we are, maybe I just wanted to say we are wasting a little bit of build time of rebuilding GCC, but it's for 2 architectures or wherever we might default to 32-bit. Not the biggest of the deal, of course. It's not amazing. I think we just install. So that might work. Let's see if XGC, or do we have a real, where do we have the real G? All right, we have also, what we've only that here. wherever it I'm not sure if that is also final GCC already. Print multi-lib, so that should, this does not look right. No, this does not look right. It should have dot. Good that we tested that. Something went wrong. Whatever that. All right, we might have configured it wrong because I copied and pasted it with probably without that one. Yeah, we missed that default. Okay, so it has the chance of working like that. Let's the build continue and see how that goes. Yeah, some more people tune in, which is amazing. Just after, so unfortunately we need to wait. How long is it? 3, 4, 5 minutes. Yeah. All right. We wanted theoretically to package this other compiler here. So we will also eventually. Which one was the new one? This one. So 8cc, 9cc. You really, or they really have many. Small, was this the latest one? I think maybe this cheap, whatever. Here is that one. I wonder if it is worth to package that. So what does it target? Only x86? Maybe it's not even worth to package that, not to have all random stuff. Maybe it's actually not worth to package each small random. Yeah, what we will do in our microkernel series, I mentioned this before, I want started some proof of concept. I want some small, so basically this microkernel stuff will everything be the smallest, right? I'm not saying it will be the most high performance, but it will be the keeping it stupid, small and simple. The basic KISS principle here. So it sure will have features, and I hope it will be nice to use and stuff, despite its minimalism. But having GCC and Clang, of course, theoretically, maybe eventually we will support that, and we will obviously start building that with GCC probably, or Clang, or both, or a mix, supporting both. But eventually, after like a year or two, when we get more freestandingly self-hosting, I would want some small compiler. And so maybe in the long term, sure, there are already enough languages, like C and D and F and Rust and Go and stuff. I would want to see how far minimal usable compiler stuff we can do, similar to LuaJIT. Of course, there are a lot of amazing projects. The problem with LuaJIT is a little bit readability, in my opinion. Although the codes, I would say, it's still 90% amazing of everything I criticize here so much. LuaJIT is still mostly amazing. The code is actually style-wise, I mean, at least it's consistent. It's, of course, unfortunately C. Not the worst thing, but it's C. But LuaJIT is somewhat hard to read, follow, and stuff. But at least it's consistent and somewhat cleanish. It could be magnitudes worse. So I would, ignoring that it's written in C, I would still give it a 90% approval rating. Maybe I should start with approval ratings of me. Somehow GCC, I would actually, well, the thing is with GCC is this messy makefiles and old-fashioned generation stuff and so on, and insane defaults. Of course, GCC is still an amazing achievement, right? Despite the other code quality, vintage C, of course. It's hard to rate this stuff, right? On one end, it is the reference open source compiler supporting the most architectures and platforms and stuff. On the other hand, it's a vintage, not super amazing C code. I mean, maybe you would, as much as I despise some of those details like C and so on, maybe to be fair, you would still need to give it an 80% okay-ish rating, given how many architectures it supports, and factoring in the historic fact that they do this already for 30 plus years. Maybe for that, also maybe the code is actually better, although yesterday's the obstack stuff of parsing the multi-lib stuff was also a little bit unreadable, hard to follow. And, that is difficult to rate the stuff, right? Maybe after all the other stuff, when we patched the G5 optimization to not break glibc, accidentally optimizing to power 7 instead of G5's power 4, I think it is, power 3 or power 4. I mean, even that code was not the most amazing, right? This is the crazy stuff, right? It is the most, or the open source and one of the most optimizing compilers supporting so many architectures, and yet if you look at some details, some surrounding details are actually not the most amazing. Maybe a lot of the vectorization and other algorithms are actually pretty solid and outstanding. I'm not still building, but it's on the other hand strange that such details then ruin the overall impression of the stuff. So what did we error out here on that stuff internal? No, this is not. Where is the actual error? Or where is hello? We did install something though. Where did it error out now? What? Did we mess some scripting up of this or this? How does it fail now? Or does some other stuff expect to be in some other directory? How does it fail exactly? Oh, wait a second. We have here also install. That is actually, maybe we should have down. We also need here destdir. Okay, we could actually manually remove install. We probably have here install twice. That might actually be the reason, at least part of the reason. Install to nothing, probably. That could have potentially failed if we try to install without half of the stuff built. Or actually, you know what? Let's use that to translate install to. It's actually a little bit smarter to translate space install to maybe install GCC. That is much smarter, isn't it? Let's see if that. How long did this build? 5 minutes. Yeah, okay, 5 minutes. Bridging that time with some chat. Let's fingers crossed that works. Although we could actually already check. We could actually check if I didn't clean that build, if it actually had a chance to work. Nothing like. Oh, this is the wrong directory. Recurring theme here, optimize your multitasking time by actually double checking what you can double check to avoid waiting 5 minutes for nothing. Object dir GCC2 for X. Actually, we should have this in the history. Yeah, so that actually, this multi-lib stuff. Again, this is my patch. This is. I wonder if this triggers. If you are a GCC developer and that triggers you, how we misuse your GCC configuration. Share, like, and subscribe. Leave in the comments below. Or file a GitHub issue on our side. So yeah, I'm totally aware that I'm not building a C++ compiler. I would also actually, like in a year, certainly aware that this is a 1,000 man-years effort. I would also not, I mean, I would in generally not recommend and write. I will certainly not write any microkernel stuff in C. bare minimum embedded C++ style of like not using crazy fancy features, but reasonable C++ subset. And also in my JIT stuff, I would maybe support C, but like a sane subset. So this would be like saner C of intentionally, first of all, only, yeah, I mean, some crazy stuff, right? Like syntax elements of C that most C developers don't even know that you can do this. Like maybe handling arrays differently so that you can't array index this strange combinations of pointer of plus and like reasonably formatted C so that we like treating a C subset in a little bit saner way. Also to avoid all those complexity in the parser, to support all this historic relicts of syntax stuff that is, if you read this, if you see this, you just like, do what's even happening there, and most people are not even aware. Certainly not all of C++, right? So if we would support maybe like lightweight, like sane C and lightweight C++ dialect of what reasonably makes sense to. Maybe we will see. Maybe we will also only support a saner, like derived mix of sane elements of C++ and Rust and Lua, of creating some new E language of something. Because the problem you might wonder why we still wait for the compile result here, why I simply don't use Rust. I don't find it the most readable, and plus all the bootstrap, right? If we want something truly minimal, this Rust already now I mean, Rust is also already a decade old, or maybe even older. Did they start this like in 2006? At least a decade ago, maybe like as early as 2006 or something. They work on this actually quite a while. First appeared, yeah, 2010, so yeah, 11 years. 2006, not that much off. So yeah, 11 years. I would actually say for 11 years, sure, I mean, this long it takes to bootstrap a whole language out of nothing. But the progress is, nah, even in Firefox, only some parts of Firefox in Rust, and in general, recurrent criticism here, I'm not a fan of the cargo module infrastructure, cloud hosting and remote source code pulling stuff, and especially, at least if the libraries would be reasonable size and not this gazillions of 150 plus 200 micro dependencies. And this complexity, in my opinion, this Rust stuff, especially with all its hundreds of micro dependencies, plus Rust is not all the LVM infrastructure is already a very, very huge amount of code that you have in your trusted compute base and in your to be supported source code base. And that is why I would like to try, maybe even you have seen this, this is of course not the only small C compiler, certainly TCC is much more popular, certainly aware of that. We of course have a package in T2 because of all, but even, yeah, the TCC sources also not the most amazing. I looked in a lot of like code generation with, hello? Oh, some best without typo. Actually, maybe I should actually create a 404 handler with pretty graphic for all the crazy URL typos. Oh, come on, package. What do we even have here? Packages. We can, by the way, check if they have a new release. They don't. And so, yeah, this sources, the last time I looked into that, they had, also we've had already, their code generation stuff was lots of printing, manually printing stuff, all target lib GCC. What does it do here? So this build probably, I think it built too much, or we, where do we have the last make run in, oh darn, this is too. Where is, did I not have the set X there, or did I do, or did this, darn, did this already build? I hate when this randomly make inst opt, maybe install GCC, maybe we should have, let's try debug this. Edit compile cycle using T2 build environment is not the fastest due to the nature of rebuilding everything. Object GCC2, and so this would be eval make opt that for sure build or not. Oh no, it did not. How did this not build? What does it want to do there with GCC32? Why does it build a libgcc? Yeah, so much to, maybe I should simply give up on this. I burned too much time. Also, by the way, it's running install here. Why does it do that? Run lib on. Slightly wonder why does it what? Oh, wait a second. I also run this one. Maybe all GCC. I think I. Okay, this maybe what was it? Install all GCC or install GCC. How does this work though? Maybe then, maybe there's a chance that this works like this. This cross hack here, maybe we substitute that one, maybe install. Oh, wait a second, maybe this is what did we just run? Where's my install? Oh, this is not maybe install. I think this was also wrong. Why is also okay? This is wrong in two ways apparently. We substituted the space away, and it is installed GCC. So let's hope that finally works one last time. During which we can take a look here, and I also wonder that they at TCC don't make a little bit more progress. You would think at a medium popular, I mean, sure, it's not GCC or TCC, but like a release a year certainly wouldn't. But the problem is also that Fabrice Billa does this proof of concept stuff, and then other people continue. And the problem is, of course, he is very skilled, and other people, I mean, of course, he are also skilled, but he's of course a very skilled programmer. And I slightly wonder why he abandons many projects, including QEMU, and was he also the initial starter of FFmpeg or something? But maybe he likes to do interesting stuff like ourselves, although I don't abandon my projects like this, I maintain them. Maybe he is smarter than us, and he is, after one fun project, moving on, like QEMU done, TCC done, or FFmpeg done, and it's just enjoying life with other more interesting stuff, obviously, because nobody pays him to maintain all the stuff for decades. So maybe he's way smarter than us, obviously. But where do we have, so we have, do they have your text? Okay, it doesn't matter. But my point is that the last time I looked into that, this was a lot of hard-coded printing of if this then prints, yeah, like here of magic numbers of, yeah, this is in general, x86 is messy, but I looked into ARM. Oh, they have RISC-V. No, let's take a look at that now. Maybe the new architectures are cleaner, but I also pro tip, I would use at least defines, if not like human readable defines for the stuff of arithmetic stuff of R format. Even in my proof of concept stuff, I mean, my proof of concept is of course complete garbage, but I would like here, I would have actually some kind of macro or function actually preferably inline function over macro, that does the R format stuff, and then have here like emit. Okay, they have actually emit R, but why do they have this here? So yeah, in my opinion, on first glance, this is too much magic number and constant shifting stuff. This should be, I mean, what is it, right? You would need to look at also 0. They shift here 0. This is of course super confusing. They have here 0 and there they have 8. So this is also why you don't do that, right? I mean, you could have easily have a typo in there and then you wonder that your code randomly crashes. If you have here whatever that is for ASM, SB and stuff, at least, so probably some of those must be store byte and stuff, word and something. Yeah, stores. Yeah, I really wonder why people need to do that without I mean, this is a crazy thing, right? For me, I would like never, even for proof of concept, I mean, maybe for like 5 minutes, but if I proof of concept stuff more like than 5 minutes, I would, even for my own readability and sanity, I would make this here human readable defines in one way, shape or form. And this is recurring, right? This is not only, I mean, this is just one quick look here. And this is also, you look at some Xorg drivers, sure, this is vintage stuff, but yeah. Anyway, slightly wonder, do they have like, yeah, 4 years ago. So I really wonder if this would be my project, I would at least try a release a year, even if like some stuff is not amazing. I mean, what is the point of not, like, imagine all the thousands of hours of individual contributors going into this project and then they don't release it for a few years. It's always, maybe you would have more users, and because people usually try to out new stuff and not like 4-year-old stuff, and then they think it's up and done. So you would probably would have more users, and through that more contributors and more developers, and probably more bug fixes, and also more reports of, like, imagine Linux kernel and they don't release that for 4 years, right? I mean, obviously you get more feedback. So yeah, recurring theme, not a secret, release early, release often. Also, hey, did this build? Yay! So we successfully probably YOLO that, but let's not hold our breath. That might fail sooner than later. So yeah, as expected, I expected that to somehow work easier. Recurring theme, why are there so many hacks here? So just speaking about hacks, right? And then like hacking ourselves. But yeah, I spent over 8 hours into that direction layout marginality. At the end, it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's YOLO it. It's kind of hopeless. I tried to make it nicer, reusing the makefile. The problem is that there are 2 problems. To summarize the last video also, the GCC gen multilib expects the dot directory of this, like the main base dot directory of they use dot there. Otherwise they use dot and 3264 and x32. So the main dot directory is expected to use the compiler's default, which obviously messes that up if you default to 32-bit and have a PowerPC, like you have a 64-bit arch triplet and default to 32, then you have 32 objects in the 64 labeled base directory, which confuses Clang and even I find intuitive and so on. And again, why should it be different? You configure a 64-bit arch triplet and you install it, you get an expect directory layout, and then you configure it for 32-bit default for performance and memory and stuff. And then you get a different directory layout, right? For me, it doesn't make sense to then have 32-bit binaries in the 64-bit place. And it's, yeah. And so the main problem is this gen multilib stuff of that. And even if we patch that, which kind of works, we need to fight this makefiles, which again, they only build. To me, it looks, after hours of investigation, only run multi-lib generation with additional like M64, M32 additions on top of after the normal build, meaning all the stuff is built with a default, and so we can't change it easily. Even if we try to do it, still fails randomly differently because YOLO, random issues somehow. And yeah, even if we try to hack this, more pain, no gain. So yeah, we probably want to finish Rust 2. That's it probably for this video. We can be interrupted this twice, probably long enough. I hope you learned something and about random open source stuff, compilers, random outlook. We for sure have some more videos the next days, and hopefully the last days. It's certainly more delayed than I wanted, but it doesn't of course matter in the grand scheme of things. Whether we have had released in November, actually I think we wanted to release October, right? Yeah, so yeah, 2 months delayed, but we made tons of progress of much more amazing T2 bootstrapping, cross-compile support, all the previous videos, and now even accidentally uncovered and hopefully fixing 32-bit Firefox on PowerPC. Although the only thing I'm aware, I think the last time it's segmentation fault, right? It could be that all the work of making Clang and Rust and cbind gen work with a 32-bit default on ppc64, which is all the 8 plus nearly 10 hours or so I put into this. Probably at the end, Firefox still segmentation faulting due to Rust, Clang, cbind gen, who knows what. So it might be that this work might not have an immediate success in terms of Firefox on the P3, but at least it makes this in general saner, which is certainly nice, what we want to have for Spark and PowerPC. Every place a request, a Merry Christmas. Yeah, Merry Christmas to everyone who is in this religious stuff. I also know go and enjoy the rest of the day with the family and Junior. And anyway, here is at least preparation of, I can't even, yeah, kind of a Christmas present for Risk lovers there with their vintage and retro Spark and PowerPC machines. Of course, this is also not only for that, also for other architectures where you would wanted that in the future, maybe for whatever case, potentially. So nothing is that lost. The win is always we learn some more GCC internals, stuff we otherwise never wanted to know. The thing is for Spark, we need to patch that, so Spark doesn't have a default option. So let me quickly check. I can't like instantly commit this because we need, okay, we need to patch that here. So yeah, we probably for the ease of maintenance move that out here, not the super most recommended, but we probably move that into GCC to have it next to the PowerPC conditional there, to have it a little bit closer together for maintenance. I think the patch is tiny, right? Or is it Spark became rock solid and exusable? What? Actually, that is a little bit fun. This is just the default. I mean, this is sparc64 is actually usable now. Yeah, I think we can simply, if zero that, we don't need this funny thing there. And then, yeah, moving this a little bit over to GCC. And this is also crazy, right? When I discovered that, I knew I patched Spark like 15 years ago for defaulting to 32-bit. And then I wanted to do the same bit for PowerPC, and to my surprise, when I did this like only 2 years ago, right? Like a decade later, defaulting GCC to 32-bit for PowerPC P3 performance. And to my surprise, I found that PowerPC had this default 32 flag. And then I actually double checked, right? Recurring attention to detail and dedication here. I actually did the extra time of checking whether Spark in the meantime, like 15 years later, has a default switch. And back in the day, like Aurora Linux and Red Hat or whoever had official Spark support, at least Aurora Linux or Debian, which also probably at times defaulted to 32-bit, nobody of them worked on a proper GCC configure switch, right? To my surprise, PowerPC had it and Spark still not, right? And that's a little bit, if GCC would be my project and like I would have structured that more modular and this kind of configuration options. If I added a default 32, like with CPU or whatever that was, default 32 option, I would have actually implemented that for most, if not all, B-Arch architectures and like not just PowerPCs. This always really surprises me here that this is this one here, what I'm talking about, this CPU default 32 that only works for PowerPC. So yeah, so this one we don't need then anymore because it was a nice try, but doesn't really do much. And the other is multi-lib M32, and here we actually don't need that one, so we only need, so this is a, yeah, I tried it, it's like, yeah, it's no point to really keep, I mean, sometimes you could archive those patches just, but it was a pain, and I know it, where this flag is now. I mean, if I ever, like in a decade, I see famous last words, right? Maybe in a decade we rewrite that and patch that again, who knows, maybe. Yeah, I will be curious to me if that fully bootstraps. Then we hopefully the last days famous last words bot layer. One more thing, another one thing we scratched off our another just one thing we didn't even have on our to-do list, but maybe successfully to check mark here off of our bucket list. Hope you enjoyed this. Yeah, happy holidays, stay healthy, and yeah, to the next video, the next days. There will be a new one before New Year. Otherwise, if you already go out at some off-grid adventure, Happy New Year already, but otherwise we will probably hear and see us the next days again.